Greetings, friends, and welcome to part 2 of creating a monster. Now, up here, you'll see a link to my previous build, which was part 1, which is this whole piece of monstrosity. You can see, I love the size of this thing. Now we're going to be working on doing the tail section, and we'll be doing some of the mandible work here as well. I'm hoping in this video to get the sculpt on this thing completely done so we can start doing finishing up. Now, for this next step, what you're going to need is you're going to need 4-inch styrofoam again, and down below you will find a template for all of these spine pieces. And you'll find that they look something like this. You'll need to cut each one of these out, and then in the center, you'll want to take out a 2-inch pass-through hole on these things. How did I do that? Well, I used, I wish I had a better way, because I was like a 10-ton gorilla, you know, trying to beat the crap out of this thing. I used a hot knife and just forced it through to create these holes. It's not the cleanest in the world, but it works. If anybody has a better solution for cutting holes through that depth of styrofoam, let me know. To mark the center of where that hole went, all I did is marked 2 inches down from the top, so I get my middle mark, and then I measured the hole width and then just marked center. Punched a hole and then used it to drill. The initial hole was just a 2-inch hole saw. It just gives me a really clean start. Did it on both sides, and I just used the hot knife to clean it through. Now, once you've got all of those cut out, you can see at the top we've got contour lines already. The template has all of these contour lines on it. You'll see that I've done a little bit more here just to show you how to get these lines onto here easily, because you want to do it on both sides. So what I did is I took my template, I folded it in half, and then using a pair of scissors, I just clipped the corner off. And the reason behind that is, here it is. The reason behind that is it allows me to put a mark exactly at the center point. So when I go to cut this off, I know where my center is. So then I took it, I cut to the contour line, I put it down again, and using those 2 marks to put the registration, I drew the template on, flipped it over. You'll see on the other side, it's the exact same thing. Done. Now I'm going to do is use a hot knife to cut through. But before I forget, using my scribe here, I put a mark 1 inch down, and I just put a whole bunch of dots. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be cutting from here to here through. Now, one of the big problems here is you got to be careful. And this is all set up for 2-inch backer rod. This is just pretty much a pool noodle, but it's 2 inches. So yes, you might have trouble finding this. Basement places carry this. Now, the reason why you have to be careful about these contours is we only have so much material left here. And I have to be careful that when we cut through, we don't cut down to here. It's a bit of a gamble and a bit of a game to make sure that it works properly. But that's why these contour lines are set up very specifically on my template to make sure that I don't cut into my center area. Let's be honest, I may do it anyways when I go to cut it. Things sneak up on you. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut all these rib pieces. You're going to do all the contour lines. Using a hot knife, you're going to cut down these, matching up with the outside, and then we'll be back to talk about the rest of this spine and what happens to the tail, which is, no, the tail's here. This is the tail. Anyways, I'll be back. As you can see, we have now got the texturing done onto these spinal pieces. And all I did is I took my knife, cut it through, cut it down, and pretty much then just took sandpaper. Well, I'll use a spindle sander, but you can use sandpaper to bring this down. I did some extra notches just to give it a bit of character. You don't have to do this. You find what you want to build and run with it. Now, what I did here is I used a 1-inch Forstner bit. You can use a hot knife to cut these holes. These are going to be for the legs, and what you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing 4 on the upper side, and then way down here you're going to be doing 2. 1 inch here, and then this one's got to be about 1.5 inches because this is for the bigger leg, so you need a bit more space. I may need to make this bigger yet again. We will see. So all I did is I went through, textured all of the spinal bones. Just don't do this one. See how there's a line through that? Drives me nuts, but I can't fix it. pretty much run with it, get these to the point that you like them, and then you're going to seal it with heat gun, which I still have to go do. Then once you're done that, I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab the legs. So I hope you like making more legs, because this is what this build is all about. It's just making lots of legs. It's borderline making a freaking centipede. Now, you'll find on the template down below, you're going to have multiple leg sizes that are all labeled in such a way that you know what they look like. You're going to have small legs, you're going to have medium legs, and then you're going to have large legs, and you're also going to have that we used before, which was the very large claw legs. They go in the front. You're going to need 2 of those. The large legs, you're going to need 2 of those. I'll have it labeled, but I'm going to tell you here anyways. The medium legs, you're going to need 4, and then the small legs, you're going to need 4. And what all happens now is you're going to take these legs, and they are going to go into those slots at about a 45-degree angle backwards. And now the only thing I haven't decided completely yet, let me see how that looks. It looks really nice. It fits in there beautifully. What I was not sure about yet, if I'm going to attach them before I paint it or attach it after I paint it. I think it's going to be after. So, looking at the previous video that I did, you'll see how I carved these legs. And I'll just give you a quick refresher here. It's a matter of just using, especially on these ones, I use the wood burning knife or the soldering knife or that hot thingy that melts styrofoam. To do these lines here, I flipped it over, I did a circle, and I used my finger to knock those out. I chamfered the edges of the foam to give it a carapissy look, and then I used the point to give it the bone texture on each one, on each side. And then the claws, I just did a big heavy, I wanted the claws to look a little bit ratty-tatty, so that's how it ends up looking. And at the bottom, do the exact same thing, except you see right there, I missed doing the texture on the back of those joints. That's okay. I'll just pretend that that was the one that I did. Oh, look at that. See, just magic. It got it all done. So you're going to have to build a whole bunch of these, put on some music, enjoy making them. This is the last legs we, oh no, wait a second, there's mandibles we have to make, which uses a similar template. Regardless, once you've got all these built, you get them on. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to attach them yet. What I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go heat seal this with I'm going to go hit this with a heat gun to get the texture all done now that my legs are all finished. Everything is ready to start coming together on this. And then I'm going to use my soldering iron to make a whole bunch of bone dots all around this thing. So I'm just going to kick back in my garage and put on a gas mask as I work on all this. Anyways, you don't need to hear that, but you can hear it anyways. I'll be back in a bit. As you can see, all of the millions of little dots are all done, all the way up the tail. And the legs right now are just pinned in. What's going to happen with those legs is when we actually go to, after finished painting, we're actually going to be caulking those in. It'll be a strong bond, and it'll allow the legs a little bit of wiggle so they don't break. Now, up here, these legs are a little bit different. They won't take the torque of being lifted up. So what I've done here, let's pull one of them out here. As you go through, what you'll want to do is you'll want to mark these legs specifically for the slots that they're going into. And using a shish kebab skewer, I cut them down to about maybe, 3 inches long. About 1.5 inches gets pushed into there. And then what you do is you push the other 1.5 inches into there. But what you'll do first is you will fit this and just shave this down to the point that it's actually going to fit into there. So you'll just go like that, and then it'll slide in. And then after this is all done, you can either leave this like this, because it actually looks pretty good, or you can caulk it in. It's up to you. The one thing nice about it like this, legs are removable for storage. Now up here, you'll see my pin fell out, so I'm just gonna poke that back in there while I'm working here. Okay. On the file down below, you'll see the mandible list, and actually, they are not specifically for the mandibles. Those upper ones are the small legs, and the lower ones are the larger legs. So you'll just be cutting those from the templates you already have. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be pinning those onto the side of the mouth to get the mandible all set up. Now, Of course, we've got to this point. You have the claws are now attached. And all I did is I carved these down with a hot knife. You can do with sanding paper. And then to get this texture here, I ran my my wood burning knife over the top of it, causing it to dimple very slightly on both of them. And you can see the texture that it gives it is very convincing. Oh, there's a little bit more that's going to go here, but you're going to see that in the next video because I still haven't figured out completely what I want to do. I'm fighting that a bit, so it gets to be put off to next week, so I have another week to work on it. Anyways, the body of this thing is pretty much done. All the legs are in. Like I said, you don't want to glue them yet because it'll make painting this thing an absolute monster. We have a spike to go in right there, which isn't in yet. But beyond that, we are pretty much done the main part of the sculpt of my little critter here. Oh, and as a fun side note, you can see this thing is just, it's turned out so awesome. It's so neat to go back and see what you've built and go, heck yeah, that turned out pretty awesome. But you'll see that it really has a look, and it doesn't matter the angle you go at this thing at, it looks good. Which is a funny little story because when I had this thing on the floor and I was working on it, many years ago I used to play a miniature game called Warhammer 40k. I played a group called the Tyranids. And when I put this thing on the floor, I realized this thing looks like a Tyranid. So I posted it to the Reddit forums on the Warhammer 40k, and they loved it too. So there's probably going to be quite a few people who watched the video who came from there. So regardless, there's the Netherblade Hive Tyrant that I called it. Anyways, we're going to call it here for this week. I've already given you enough sculpting to do, and yeah, I'm tired of sculpting as well. This has been a lot of work, but you can see that when you do bigger stuff like this, the effort really shows. You spend more time making this thing look good, and you don't need to explain your artwork. It just sits awesome, looks amazing. Anyways, I'm going to leave it be. I'm going to go and start figuring out the last part there, and the last part there. And next week, or next video, we're going to be painting this thing. And that is an adventure in itself. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Remember, if you like to subscribe, that would be fantastic too. And if you really love me, well, let's not get carried away. I've got a Patreon down in the description that you can sign up to if you so feel like it. Anyways, I will see you all next time. Have a good one all.